The war between humanity and the Carthy Dominion had already lasted 12 long and painful years, and most people on both sides had forgotten what peace even felt like. Cities had burned, fleets had fallen from the sky, and entire star systems had turned into silent graveyards drifting in cold space. Soldiers were no longer fighting for victory. They were only fighting because the war had not yet ended. Captain Elias Rowan was one of the few human officers who still believed that saving lives mattered more than destroying enemies. Many called him stubborn, some called him weak, but the civilians he had rescued from burning colonies called him a hero, and that was enough for him. On the day everything changed, Elias commanded a damaged evacuation cruiser near the edge of Carthy territory. The mission was already a failure. Enemy ships had appeared too quickly, and the human fleet had scattered under heavy fire. Escape pods launched in every direction, like sparks from a dying flame. Elias stayed behind longer than orders allowed, pulling in the last civilian transports, even as alarms screamed through the ship. When the final barrage struck, the cruiser's engines exploded in white light. For a moment, the stars themselves seemed to vanish. Everyone believed Captain Elias Rowan had died with his ship. But death did not come for him. Instead, he woke in darkness, filled with a soft blue glow. His body felt heavy, wrapped in something warm and strange. Pain moved slowly through his chest each time he tried to breathe. The air smelled unfamiliar, like metal and rain mixed together. He tried to move, but his arms refused to obey. Shapes stood around him, tall, silent, and not human. Memory returned like broken glass. The war. The explosion. Enemy space. He forced his eyes open wider and saw the truth. Aliens. The Carthy. For 12 years, he had only seen them through battle screens and distant weapons fire. Now they stood only steps away, their smooth, dark skin reflecting the blue light, their eyes bright and unreadable. Their forms were elegant and terrifying at the same time, like living statues carved for war. Elias expected pain, interrogation, execution. Instead, nothing happened. Machines hummed quietly around him. Something connected to his arm pulsed with gentle light. They were not killing him. They were keeping him alive. Confusion was more frightening than death. Time passed in silence. He drifted in and out of sleep, never sure how many hours or days moved by. Each time he woke, the same blue-lit chamber surrounded him, the same quiet machines, the same distant figures watching without speaking. Eventually the door opened, and the air itself seemed to change. Every Carthy in the room lowered their heads at once. Someone important had arrived. She entered with slow, calm steps, and even through his weakness, Elias could feel the weight of her presence. She was taller than the others, her posture straight like a blade. Thin lines of silver light moved across the dark surface of her skin, forming patterns that shifted as she walked. Her eyes held a depth that felt ancient, filled with intelligence and something colder than anger. This could only be the ruler of this world, the alien queen. Elias tried to sit up, but pain pushed him back down. He forced himself to meet her gaze anyway. If he was going to die, he would die looking at his enemy, not hiding from her. For a long moment, the chamber remained silent, except for the soft sound of the machines. The queen studied him the way a scientist might study an unfamiliar creature. Not with hatred, not with kindness, only careful thought. Elias waited for the order that would end his life. It never came. Before the queen could speak, something unexpected happened. A small figure slipped past the guards at the doorway, too small to be a soldier, too quick to be stopped in time. A child. The little Carthy ran across the shining floor without fear, ignoring the shocked voices behind her. She moved straight toward the medical platform where Elias lay, as if nothing in the universe could stop her. The guards froze, uncertain. No one dared touch the child in front of the queen. Elias watched in confusion as the small alien reached him. Up close, she looked fragile compared to the tall warriors around her. Her eyes were wide, bright, and filled with emotion that did not belong in a room built for war. She climbed onto the edge of the platform with surprising determination. Before anyone could react, she wrapped her small arms around him. The contact was gentle, careful, almost afraid of hurting him. The entire chamber stopped breathing. Elias felt warmth through the bandages covering his armor. For a second he wondered if he was dreaming, still lost in the explosion. Nothing about this moment made sense. An enemy child should fear him, hate him, not hold him like someone precious. Then she spoke. Her voice was soft and clear, and the words were in perfect human language. "Father." The sound echoed through the silent chamber like a weapon no one could block. Every guard stiffened. Several stepped back in visible shock. Even the machines seemed too loud now. Elias's heart forgot how to beat. He had never seen this child before. He had never been on this world. Nothing in his memory could explain what she had just said. Slowly, painfully, he looked toward the queen. For the first time since entering the room, her perfect calm was gone. Her eyes were wide, not with anger, with shock. A silence deeper than space filled the chamber. No one moved. No one spoke. The future of two civilizations seemed to hang on a single, impossible word spoken by a child. Elias tried to understand, but his thoughts felt slow and distant. Pain, confusion, and exhaustion pulled at him from every side. Yet one feeling rose above all the others. The small arms holding him did not feel like a lie. They felt real. The child held him tighter, as if afraid he might disappear again. A quiet sound came from her throat, something close to relief. She did not look at the guards or the queen. She only looked at him, like he was the only safe place in the universe. Elias felt something inside his chest shift in a way no battlefield had ever caused. He had faced fleets, explosions, and death without fear. But this simple moment, this fragile trust from a child who should have been his enemy, shook him more than any war. He did not know why she called him father. But he knew one truth with sudden, painful clarity. If anyone tried to harm her, he would protect her. Even here, even now, even if it meant dying for the child of his enemy. Across the chamber, the queen finally moved. One slow step forward, then another. Her gaze never left the child clinging to the wounded human soldier. Questions filled her expression. Questions no ruler in history had ever faced. Why did her daughter know this enemy? Why did she speak his language? Why did she hold him with love instead of fear? The war outside suddenly felt very small compared to the mystery inside this room. Elias gathered what little strength he had left. His voice was rough, barely more than a whisper.
I don't understand.
Not a lie, only the truth. The queen stopped beside the platform, close enough that he could see the faint light moving beneath her skin like distant stars. Power surrounded her, ancient and absolute. With a single word, she could end his life. But she did not give that word. Instead, she looked down at her child and then back at him. For the first time in 12 years of war, a moment of uncertainty entered the heart of the Carthy Dominion, and in that fragile silence, something far more dangerous than any weapon was born. A question, one that could change everything. The chamber did not return to normal after the child spoke. Silence stayed there like a living thing, heavy and watchful. Captain Elias Rowan could still feel the small arms wrapped around him. The warmth was real. The quiet breathing against his chest was real. Nothing about this moment felt like a dream anymore, and that made it far more frightening. Across from him, the alien queen stood completely still. Her people waited for her command, but no command came. For the first time since Elias had known the Carthy only as enemies, he saw uncertainty in their ruler's eyes. The child did not seem to notice the tension around her. She simply looked up at Elias with trust that had no fear inside it. That trust hurt more than any wound in his body. He forced himself to speak again, his voice weak and slow. "I have never seen her before." The guards reacted at once, their posture turning sharp with suspicion. To them, this sounded like a lie. To the Queen, it sounded like something else. She studied his face carefully, searching for deception. Carthy were trained from birth to read emotion, and humans were said to be easy to understand. But Elias Rowan's expression showed only confusion and pain, nothing false. The Queen lowered her gaze to the child still holding him. "My daughter," she said quietly, her voice calm but heavy with meaning, "does not give trust without reason." The words were not anger. They were truth. Elias did not know how to answer. He barely understood his own thoughts. His memory of the war, the explosion, and the darkness after it was clear. But before that, there were years of missions, rescues, hidden operations, near the border of enemy space. Too many moments to remember clearly. The child moved slightly and placed her small hand against his cheek, careful of the injuries. The simple touch sent a strange feeling through him, something warm and painful at the same time. A memory tried to rise in his mind, but it stayed just out of reach. The Queen noticed the movement. Every detail mattered now. She gave a soft command in her own language. The guards slowly stepped back, though their eyes never left the human. Machines around the platform changed tone, scanning more deeply. Information moved silently through the room. Elias understood one thing clearly. He was no longer just a prisoner. He was a mystery. Time passed, though it was hard to measure inside the blue-lit chamber. The child refused to leave him. Even when attendants tried gently to guide her away, she held tighter. The Queen allowed it, which shocked everyone present. At last, the Queen spoke again. "Search all records," she ordered. "Every encounter near our borders, every lost vessel, every recovered signal." The command spread beyond the chamber into the vast systems of the Carthy Dominion. If an answer existed, she would find it. Elias felt exhaustion pulling him down again, but fear kept him awake. Not fear for himself, fear for the child. If the truth behind this bond was dangerous, she could suffer for it. In war, innocence rarely survived long. He looked at her small face, peaceful despite everything. A quiet thought formed in his mind. "I will not let harm reach you." He did not know why he felt that promise so strongly, but it was there, unbreakable. Hours later, the chamber doors opened once more. This time, several Carthy scholars entered, carrying glowing data forms. Their movements were careful, respectful, but also tense. Something important had been found. They bowed before the Queen and presented the information. The lead scholar spoke in a steady voice. 12 cycles ago, a damaged royal escape pod disappeared near the outer war zone. The air in the room changed instantly. Elias felt the child's grip tighten slightly, as if she sensed the importance of the words. The scholar continued. The pod carried a newly born heir. Search fleets failed to locate it. Debris from human and Carthy battles filled the region. Survival probability was declared impossible. The Queen's expression did not move, but the light beneath her skin dimmed faintly. Pain, carefully hidden, passed through her. Elias felt his heart begin to beat faster. A lost pod, a newborn child, near a battle zone. Something inside his memory stirred. The scholar touched the glowing surface again, revealing an old transmission fragment. An unknown signal was detected shortly after the disappearance. Human origin, contained medical data and gene stabilization patterns not used by our species. The word struck Elias like distant thunder. Medical data. Gene stabilization. A broken image flashed in his mind. Not clear, just light, alarms, and a tiny shape inside a damaged life pod. His breathing grew uneven. The scholar finished the report. The escape pod was later recovered deep within our territory. The child inside survived. Genetic scans showed unexplained stabilization. We believed it a miracle of biology. Silence followed. Everyone in the chamber understood what this meant. Slowly, very slowly, the Queen turned her gaze back to the wounded human on the platform. Elias's memories were returning now, piece by piece, like stars appearing in a dark sky. A secret mission near the border, orders to ignore unknown signals. His decision to investigate anyway. He remembered opening a drifting pod covered in battle scars. Remembered the weak life signs fading inside. Remembered realizing the child would die within minutes without help. And he remembered making a choice that broke military law. He had used experimental human medical technology, adaptive gene therapy never tested on alien life, to stabilize the infant's failing body. It was dangerous, forbidden. But leaving the child to die had been impossible. Afterward, he had sealed the pod and sent it drifting toward Carthy space, hoping someone would find her. He had told no one, not his command. Not his crew, no one. Because in war, saving the enemy's child was called betrayal. The memory finished forming. Elias closed his eyes briefly, pain and understanding mixing together. When he opened them again, the Queen was still watching him. Now she knew. The chamber felt smaller than ever before. Guards waited for anger. Scholars waited for judgment. History itself seemed to hold its breath. The child looked between them, not understanding the politics or danger. She only understood one simple truth. The human had saved her once, and she had found him again. Elias swallowed slowly. His voice was still weak, but the truth inside it was strong. "I found a pod," he said. Near a battlefield, the child was dying. No one moved. "I couldn't let that happen." The words were simple. No hero speech. No defense. Just truth. The Queen's eyes searched his face again, deeper this time. She saw the memory there. The pain. The certainty. Nothing false. For the first time in many years, something inside her carefully controlled heart began to change. Not forgiveness. Not trust. But the beginning of a question she had never allowed herself to ask. What if the enemy was not what we believed? The child rested her head gently against Elias's chest, calm and safe, as if the answer to that question was already clear to her. And in that quiet moment, far beyond battlefields and burning stars, the future of two civilizations shifted slightly, because one human had chosen compassion. The truth did not bring peace to the chamber. Instead, it brought a different kind of tension, quieter, deeper, and far more dangerous than open war. No one spoke for a long time after Elias admitted what he had done. The guards stood frozen between duty and confusion. The scholars lowered their eyes, unsure whether they had just revealed a miracle or a crime. Even the machines seemed to soften their sound, as if the room itself were listening. At the center of it all, the small Carthy child remained calm. She stayed close to Elias, her head resting lightly against him, as though nothing in the universe could be more natural. To her, there was no mystery, no politics, no enemy lines, only the quiet certainty that the one who had saved her life was here again. Queen Lysara watched them both without moving. Inside her mind, years of belief were beginning to crack. From the moment she was born, she had been taught one unchanging truth. Humans were destroyers. Humans spread across the stars without balance. Humans brought war wherever they traveled. Every history record, every military report, every story of loss had repeated the same lesson. And yet, the living proof before her did not match that truth. A human soldier had found her dying child in the darkness between battlefields. He had no reason to help, no reward waiting, only risk. Still, he had chosen to save her. Not for victory, not for strategy. Simply because she was a child. Lysara felt something unfamiliar press quietly against the walls of her certainty. She did not welcome the feeling, but she could not ignore it either. At last she spoke, her voice calm but carrying through the chamber. If your leaders had known,
they would have punished you. It was not a question.
It was understanding, Elias answered with slow honesty. Yes, yet you did it anyway. Yes. No pride lived in his voice, no regret either, only acceptance. The Queen studied him carefully. Many beings claimed mercy when it was safe. Very few chose it when it cost everything. Before she could speak again, a sharp tone cut through the chamber. One of the wall displays lit with urgent crimson light. Every guard reacted instantly, turning toward the signal. An intrusion alert. A military officer rushed inside and dropped to one knee before the Queen. Outer Defense Fleets report unauthorized movement, he said quickly. Several warlords are mobilizing forces without command approval. The words spread through the room like cold wind. Carthy warlords held great power during wartime, but they were bound to the Queen's authority. Moving fleets without her order meant only one thing: rebellion. Lysara's expression did not change, yet the air around her grew heavy with controlled force. Cause, she said. The officer hesitated for only a fraction of a second. Intercepted transmissions reference. Contamination of the royal bloodline. They believe the air has been altered by human influence. Silence returned, sharper than before. The scholars lowered their heads in dread. The guards tightened their grip on their weapons. Everyone understood the danger now. If the warlords convinced the Dominion that the future Queen carried human-altered genes, civil conflict would erupt across their worlds. Billions could die, not by human weapons, but by their own. All because of one hidden act of compassion. Elias felt the child shift slightly beside him, disturbed by the tension she could not understand. Instinctively, he placed a weak but gentle hand near her shoulder. The movement was small, yet several guards noticed, and did not stop him. Lysara saw it too. For a single quiet moment, she allowed herself to imagine a different path, one where this human had never found the pod, one where her child had simply died in silence 12 years ago. The rebellion would not exist. The bloodline would be unquestioned. The war would continue as always. The thought felt, empty. She pushed it away and returned to the present. Seal all internal communications, she ordered. No fleet moves without my command. The officer bowed and hurried out. But everyone in the chamber knew the truth. Events had already begun. Stopping them would not be simple. Elias gathered strength to speak. This is because of me. Several guards looked at him sharply, but Lysara raised one hand. Silence returned at once. He continued, voice rough but steady. If they want someone to blame, give them me. The child lifted her head quickly, a soft sound of protest escaping her. She did not understand the words, but she felt the meaning. Her small hand gripped his clothing tighter. Lysara watched this exchange with deep attention. You would surrender your life, she said, to protect a species still at war with your own. Elias met her gaze. I would protect a child. War doesn't change that. The simplicity of the answer struck the room harder than any speech. For the first time, emotion touched the edges of Lasara's voice. You are inconvenient human. A faint sound moved through the chamber, almost disbelief, almost something lighter, not humor, but close. Before more could be said, another alarm sounded, louder than before. This one carried the tone of direct attack. A defense commander's voice filled the chamber. Rebel fleet exiting jump space near the capital, weapons charging.
They are not requesting negotiation. The moment everyone feared had arrived.
Lasara turned toward the display, her posture becoming pure authority once more. The uncertain mother vanished. The ruler of a star-spanning dominion remained. Prepare planetary shields, she commanded.
Recall loyal fleets. No strike on the rebels unless I give the word.
Even now, she tried to avoid civil war. Elias watched her, understanding the weight she carried. Human leaders often spoke of sacrifice, but few held the lives of entire worlds in a single decision. The child looked between them, sensing danger growing like a storm she could not see. Without thinking, Elias whispered softly, "It's okay." He did not know if she understood the words, but she relaxed slightly anyway. Across the chamber, Lasara saw that too, and something inside her settled into clarity. The warlords believed strength meant purity, control, and fear. This human believed strength meant protection, even of enemies. Only one of those paths allowed a future where children survived. The alarms continued, reports of battle positions, shield status, fleet numbers, the sound of a civilization standing on the edge of tearing itself apart. Yet in the center of that rising chaos, a wounded human and a quiet child remained still, holding on to a fragile peace no weapon could create. Lasara looked at them one last time before turning fully toward the coming conflict. History was moving. Lines were being drawn. Truths long buried were rising to the surface, and she understood with perfect certainty what happened in the next few hours would decide far more than a rebellion. It would decide whether hatred remained the strongest force in the stars, or whether a single act of compassion could truly change the fate of worlds.